Hello, I'm Alan Mendeloff, a member of the Wisconsin HFMA Chapter. Welcome to our video learning series for achieving the Certified Healthcare Financial Professional designation. As healthcare professionals, we work in a reform environment that requires entities to fundamentally rethink their business models. The new CHFP exam reflects this changing reality. A reform environment presents every healthcare organization with the same fundamental set of challenges: to identify new opportunities, devise creative responses, launch new solutions to achieve positive impact, and sustain those gains. The emphasis of HFMA certification program is developing the skills needed to participate in shaping the business environment. A critical reality is that organizations today must be learning organizations that continuously measure and understand their business environment, translate goals into actions, execute effectively, and evaluate results. Our industry needs people who can lead change in a fluid world. So the purpose of the CHFP program has shifted towards continuous learning, not just demonstrating experience and expertise. A critical business issue is the recruitment, development, and retention of competent talent. The new CHFP program is intended both for individuals to use in advancing their careers and for organizations to use as a component of a comprehensive talent development program. The first of two modules is called the Business of Healthcare. This module focuses on understanding the business environment from a finance perspective. Importantly, this module includes the business realities for payers and physicians, as well as hospital providers. A fundamental business assumption in building the module content is that CHFPs will work in a collaborative, multidisciplinary workplace, resulting from the transformation from providing care to managing health. The second module is called Operational Excellence, focusing on specific payer, physician, and provider business concerns. It utilizes case studies to present candidates the opportunity to see real-world business situations and test their ability to apply the knowledge gained in the first module. The second module encourages multidisciplinary thinking and appreciation of other professionals' business concerns. With these goals in mind, the chapters of Wisconsin, Connecticut, Arizona, and Vermont, New Hampshire have collaborated to bring you the following learning module. Our presenter today is Terry Brennan. Terry is a retired former Director of Finance, Controller, and CFO. His healthcare finance career started in 1977 and continued until 2014. He also worked for 7 years on the clinical side. He led the budgeting efforts for institutions he worked for and was heavily involved in all facets of both general obligation and revenue bond issues. He has implemented multiple computer systems, from replacement systems to conversion from manual systems. Terry earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in accounting from Fort Lewis College, and he earned his CHFP designation in February of 2007 and the Fellow in HFMA designation in April of 2007. Terry has written and received multiple Yerger Awards, as well as many other awards as Arizona Chapter Leader, especially for certification activity. He has co-written for HFM Magazine and has written numerous articles for the Arizona Chapter publications. Terry has presented at the A&I and at numerous vendor forums. His topic today is strategic financial issues. Thank you very much, Terry.
Thank you, Alan, for that great introduction. And I'd like to welcome all to Module 1, Course 4, which is the Module 1 is the Business of Healthcare, and Course 4, Strategic Financial Issues. Over the next 55 minutes, we will delve into the components of strategic planning and how it leads to budget preparation. We will also review several budget types and clarify what those types are, and share what several budget and variance analysis look like. The learning objectives for today are: you will be able to, by the end of this class, describe how strategic planning influences budgeting, differentiate between various budget approaches, define the different types of budgets used in a healthcare business, and complete a simple and flexible budget variance analysis. One thing we need to keep in mind is that the healthcare industry in the United States is one of the largest components of the economy. It currently makes up about 20% of the nation's gross domestic product and will be a significant factor in the national economy for the foreseeable future. The starting context is strategic planning and budgeting. The context for successful use of the financial statement data comes from planning and budgeting. Strategic planning is the integral piece to any sector of healthcare. It guides healthcare-related corporations in the directions they want their business to head in, their target. Planning is a management activity that is used to set these priorities, focus its energy on its resources, strengthen operations, ensure that employees and other stakeholders are traveling in the same direction as management, and in the best direction to meet the corporate goals, establish agreement on the desired results, and assesses, then adjusts if necessary, the organization's direction in response to a changing environment. And as we all know, healthcare is a constant changing environment. You're in healthcare because you like constant change. Healthcare provides that. The strategic plan is also a guided effort that produces fundamental decisions and actions that shape and guide what an organization is, who it serves, what it does, why it does it, setting their sights on the future. The budget is derived from the strategic plan. A budget is an itemized summary of likely income and expenses for a given time frame. We also look at capital expenditures as well as cash flow budgeting when we go through a complete budget. Typically, the budget is created using a spreadsheet. Even budgeting software has the look and feel of spreadsheets. The budget provides an understandable breakdown of how much money you have coming in, which are revenues, and how much money is going to be going out, which are expenses, capital expenditures, and other capital improvements. Planning and monitoring the budget helps the corporation identify wasteful expenditures and then adapt quickly as financial climate changes. Here is the basic of the strategic planning. Strategic planning is the essential part of managing any business and sets the general framework for what an organization is in business to accomplish and how it intends to accomplish what it has set out to do. So here we want to go through this strategic planning cycle. Number one, we start out with the goals. What are we planning to do in the future? Where do we want to go? And from there, we determine what our desired outcomes are. How do we get there? And then we want to develop strategies. So how do we measure success? We use measures and targets. In the healthcare industry, we use the key performance indicators, or KPIs. So how do we do it? That'll give us the results. And then leading back to the top of the circle again is how can we improve, which starts the strategic planning cycle all over again and runs us again through the goals, desired outcomes, strategies, measures and targets, and results. The ideal strategic plan should be updated annually. Keeping the plan fresh will assure that the business is heading in the right direction. Keep in mind that the plan should be updated and completed several months before the budgeting process begins, so that the new information will flow into the budgeting process without any roadblocks. Typically, the strategic plan time frame is from 3 to 5 years. If the corporation keeps their plan in a fresh mode with an annual update, a new year should be added to the plan to keep the strategic plan's time frame at 3 to 5 years. Most strategic plans that I have dealt with in the past are actually in the 3-year range. Once you get past the 3-year range, then everything starts to become fuzzy. You have too much change that are going on in, say, the Medicare side and the CMS side. And so to keep things fresh and meaningful, update annually, add a year, and the best on my mind is that it's a 3-year process. Now we want to delve into the mission statement, the missions, and then the visions. Strategic planning, excuse me a second. Strategic planning starts with a very fundamental premise. What is it that the business intends to do? Or, what is the purpose of this business? This is the essence of the mission statement. Literally, what is the purpose of the business in terms of delivering a service or selling a product? A mission statement may be expressed in multiple parts, such as the mission of XYZ Hospital is to provide high quality care in a state-of-the-art facility that emphasizes the human element of healthcare. I pulled several other mission statements from the internet and would like to share them with you at this point in time. The first one I have is Medtronic, and this is an abbreviated version, but for Medtronic is to contribute to human welfare by application of biomedical engineering in the research, design, manufacturing, and sale of instruments or appliances that will alleviate pain, restore health, and extend life. I've also pulled Banner Healthcare, which it says, we exist to make a difference in people's lives through excellent patient care. And then Mayo Clinic, to inspire hope and contribute to health and well-being by providing the best to every patient through integrated clinical practice, education, and research. And Froedtert Health, Froedtert and the Medical College of Wisconsin advance the health of the communities we serve through exceptional care enhanced by innovation and discovery. You can hear the differences in the mission statements of these different corporations. Each has a different path to follow, but they are all heading in similar directions. When they update their strategic plans, this is where they start and where they want to end. Now into the vision statement part. Closely linked to the mission statement is the vision statement, which is used by some organizations to concisely express the organization's aspirations. An example of a vision statement for a community health center is to be the leading source of care to the medically vulnerable and underserved. Again, I'm taking the 4 examples from before. Mayo Clinic vision statement states, number 1 is respect. Treat everyone in our diverse community, including patients, their families, and colleagues, with dignity. Compassion. Provide the best care, treating patients and family members with sensitivity and empathy. Integrity. Adhere to the highest standards of professionalism, ethics, and personal responsibility. Worthy of the trust of our patients, that our patients place in us. Healing. Inspire hope and nurture the well-being of the whole person, respecting physical, emotional, and spiritual needs. Excellence. deliver the best outcomes and highest quality service through the dedicated efforts of every team member. Teamwork. Value the contribution of all, blending the skills of individual staff members and unsurpassed collaboration. Innovation. Infuse and energize the organization, enhance the lives of those we serve through the creative ideas and unique talents of each employee. Stewardship. Sustain and reinvest in our mission and extended communities by wisely managing our human, natural, and material resources. Now on to Medtronic. Medtronic is wherever we interact with society, be it with people, product, or philanthropy, we are guided by our mission to maintain good citizenship as a company. Our vision for corporate citizenship guides us to leverage our resources, assets, and expertise to catalyze dramatic improvement in the lives of those with chronic disease. Operate responsibly in all facets where our business intersects with society. And there is more information on the Medtronic website concerning their vision statement. Now on to Banner Health. We will be a national leader recognized for clinical excellence and innovation, preferred for a highly coordinated patient experience, and distinguished by the quality of our people. Froedtert Health is Froedtert and Medical College of Wisconsin will be the region's premier health system by demonstrating superior value through an academic community partnership and aligning healthcare delivery across the region. Now back into the strategic plan. Once equipped with a sense of the mission and vision and values of a business entity, managers can set out a broad plan to guide the organization toward fulfillment of its mission. This is usually carried out in the strategic plan, which looks at a long-term view of the future, at least a year and ranging up to 5 years, although I prefer 3, into the future. Components of the strategic plan include the mission statement. This is something that we've already discussed, but keep in mind that this is what the company starts with and, when they finish the process, where they want to be. The second thing is an environmental assessment. The internal analysis using the SWOT analysis process, which is strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. So if we get into strengths, strengths are the characteristics which contribute to the company's ability to achieve its mission, i.e., what do you do better than anyone else? What do insiders view as your strengths, i.e., employees and medical staff? And then on to weaknesses. It's the characteristics which limit the company's ability to achieve its mission. As an example, what does the company need to do to improve? What specific areas do we need to improve in? What do medical staff and staff see as your weaknesses? The environmental assessment, external analysis, is similar to the internal analysis, but only outsiders would participate in this information gathering. The folks that you want to look to the outside would be community leaders in different sectors, such as in colleges, churches, city and county elected officials, state officials. So use these instruments such as SurveyMonkey to aid in gathering data. SurveyMonkey is a lot easier than handing somebody a piece of paper and pencil and have them try to go through the whole process, which could be several pages long in a handwritten version in order to get the data that you need. SurveyMonkey, on the other hand, you can have several short questions with answers and get the information that you need. Now on to threats. Competition, reimbursement. One thing that I've read about over the last several months is that they being CMS are looking at bundled knee and hip replacement reimbursement to facilities. That's going to be a challenge. Can we make money doing those? Are we going to be reimbursing the outsiders fairly? So reimbursement as well as competition are some of the threats that need to be reviewed. Some of the other things that may be a threat as obstacles such as quality issues, high readmission rates, high facility acquired conditions, the hacks, and so that will have effects on reimbursement as well. The goals and objectives, where does a company want to be at the end of the plan? They should be big picture items and not more than 2 or 3 short-term and 2 or 3 long-term goals. Remember to use the SMART acronym when building your objectives: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. And then for the process of determining how we got where we wanted to be is use the key performance indicators, or the KPIs, need to be determined and tracked to make sure that you know how your company is performing. It is critical to identify the KPIs up front that will be meaningful to the business and that they match the strategic plan. If the company is not meeting the KPIs, then steps need to be taken to get it back on the right path. An example of a KPI might be a satisfaction survey in the ED. There have been downward trends in the patient satisfaction scores that the hospital has been receiving in the ED, or the emergency department. This was also noted as a weakness in the strategic plan. Because of the input that is being received, the hospital is going to address, as a strategic initiative, the decline in the emergency department patient satisfaction scores. The major complaint of all the items that were noted in the patient satisfaction and SWOT analysis is the amount of time patients have to sit in the waiting room before they are placed in an emergency department or ED bed. Now on to budget. Some of our favorite topics. Budget. The strategic plan becomes the foundation for budgeting. You see this throughout any healthcare business, whether it be a clinic, whether it be a hospital, or whether it be someone like Medtronic. In many respects, an organization's budget is the expression of the strategic plan in numeric terms. The budget defines the organization's plans for earning revenues and using resources, i.e. capital expenditures, or over a given period of time. And keep in mind, again, that the budget is a management tool. It is not a financial tool. I've had many board members approach me and ask me, why do we budget? It's a waste of time. The answer I always give is that it is a management guide to let them know that the organization is on track or not. If management determines that they are not on track, then further research needs to be performed by department managers or their members to determine the cause and then come up with a corrective action. Generally, this review is performed on a monthly basis, but I caution you that 1 month does not make a trend. The analysis does need to be performed monthly so that the designated responsible person can make the proper correction to the operations should the trend continue. Now we'll get into the basic budget concepts and the budget where it is targeted into. A critical element of working with a budget is understanding that it is, again, a management tool, not a financial tool. This is a concept not grasped by a lot of leadership, which includes boards of directors. Budgets set targets and objectives based on the plan and by the plan set out by management. Budgets are useful in helping managers better control operations in their clinic, hospital, or health plan. Values in the budget can be used as a benchmark against which actual revenue and expense results can be compared. Usually the budget for a healthcare entity is based on a forecast for the coming year. However, monitoring progress toward organizational goals on a year-by-year basis is generally ineffective, as unfavorable changes in financial performance could remain uncorrected until they have had significant negative impacts. Generally, an annual budget projection is broken down into quarterly or monthly segments, and those annual subdivisions are used for ongoing monitoring and control in a healthcare business. Budgeting timeframes are short-term, which is 1 year, mid-term, which adds to the 1 year, years 2 and 3, and long-term, which adds to the short-term and mid-term, years 4 and 5. The usefulness of years 4 and 5 of a long-term budget are really doubtful. After year 3, the projections and numbers become fuzzy and almost useless. Back into the fuzzy math era. My preference is to budget no longer than 3 years and then update it annually so that we add another year just like we do with the strategic plan. And use the develop fixed budget to develop a flexible budget, which is a budget based on statistics for each revenue producing unit. But you should also come up, because one thing we're going to look at here in the near future, or here in the next several minutes, we're going to be looking at statistics. And you should try to come up with meaningful statistics for those departments that are not revenue producing so that everybody is on the same flexible budget. When we get into budgeting, the one thing that we've talked about already is we want to establish the goals and objectives. And then we want to sit down and determine a budget calendar. Budget calendar can be 2, 3, 6 months long. When you start the process, introducing the board to the budget process for the year, may kick off your budget calendar and ending 3, 4 months later with the approval of budget also by the board of directors. And that pieces of the budget are not only the revenue expense statistics components, but are also the capital components and a cash flow component. And we'll talk about some of these again here in a few minutes. You want to distribute budget instructions, input forms, but then what I prefer rather than input forms is to use budgeting software. Budgeting software oftentimes looks like a spreadsheet, can act like a spreadsheet, but everything is intertwined rather than you having to build links and so on and so forth in a spreadsheet so that everything comes out in the wash. You want to analyze internal and external forces that could affect historical patterns and project the volumes of activities. So we have revenue producing, and again, as I said earlier, we want to get the non-revenue producing departments a meaningful statistic as well so that we can move everything into a flexible budget. And then the process after putting all this information together by the department managers, reviewing with their financial reps or somebody similar, this information should be submitted to their division directors for their approval. If the division directors do not approve of that particular department's budget, then using budget software, they can easily kick it back to the department to have them go through and revise what the division director thinks should be revised. So approaches to budgeting. We have the incremental approach, and this approach can be useful for a business that believes that past results are reasonably predictive of future activity, are consistent with the goals of the business or corporation. However, this approach can preserve operational inefficiencies, such as excessive staffing or supply use. If projections are not critically assessed from time to time, then you're going to have built-in operational inefficiencies. The incremental approach is effective if managers assess each area of the budget for adjustments based on the needs of the business and known changes. Another version that we have is zero-based budgeting. In zero-based budgeting, the alternative approach to the budget projection is this process, where managers can start each budget projection as if there were no past experience, and each item in the budget must be justified as to reasonable each year. Generally, you will see a combination of these two. Some categories can be budgeted using the zero-based budget, such as, but not limited to, minor equipment, purchase services, and professional fees. Another item to keep in mind is to use budget software instead of spreadsheets, and this can save you from a lot of headaches and heartburn. After a period of time using Excel spreadsheets exclusively, you will notice that they become too big, cumbersome. Links start breaking, or they aren't linked properly, and you will not receive a correct summary from the spreadsheets on what your budget is for that current year. This makes it difficult to validate the budget numbers. Using budgeting software makes life a lot easier with your numbers than being accurate and improvable. And oftentimes, the budgeting software, some of the components will look like spreadsheets to make it easier for people to work with. So now we want to get in. This is the incremental budgeting example. This is Tom Thumb Memorial Hospital. It's the 2000 budget for surgery. What I have gone through here is gone through and picked up their gross revenues. I've started in actual 2012, then actual 2013, and then the 9 months actual of 2015. The revenues are what they are for those historical periods of time. The expenses start out with salaries and wages. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're working with the salaries and wages and doing the budget, that should actually come from not an incremental approach, but from a position control approach. If FTEs need to be added because of the statistics increasing, then those need to be reviewed separately. But again, salaries and wages should be based on the position control and budgeted that way. Once we get into medical supplies are a little more cumbersome to determine what they would be on an individual basis. Having department managers budget 4x4s and 2x2s and sponges and things along that line may become very cumbersome and almost impossible. But things that we can get into are things like prosthetics and implants. Those can become zero-based budgeted. Minor equipment, contract labor, purchase services, the maintenance and repairs, and any training and travel, along with dues and subscriptions, can all be zero-based budgeted. As you see on this spreadsheet too, what I've done for the incremental, I've taken the 9 months actual for 2015. Then I will convert that using the change in budgeted statistics and an increase for inflation. Now the increase for inflation for the expense side, you should be able to work with your materials management department. They should receive updates annually from their GPOs or their purchase organizations that tell them what components or what pieces of the components are going to increase. Pharmaceuticals, other medical supplies, things along that line, and tell us what their projections are for the increase in inflation. Then after the 9 months actual has been increased for inflation, then we take it back up and make it a full annual process. And as you can see, everything has been annualized out, and see some of the increases that or decreases that are coming about in this process. Our next process is zero-based budgeting. I have starred all of the pieces that should be zero-based budgeted in this particular example of Tom Thumb Memorial Hospital. The gross revenues would not be zero-based budgeted, but would be based on the statistics that we see there. Again, salaries and wages comes from the position control and should be budgeted that way. And then once we get into the rest of the items that we have starred, then those items would be zero-based budgeted. And I'm going to give you an example of what one component of a zero-based budget spreadsheet would look like. And here's our example. I'm going to take an easy example for this one. This is the training and travel that the surgery department would receive, and this is how they budgeted. They are going to the AORN convention in Anaheim. There's 4 of them. The cost per unit for registration is $750, so the total cost is $3,000. And the travel to Anaheim, there's 4 of them. They're going to be $150 a piece, so the total cost is $600. And so that, along with the meals and lodging for 4 days, would then be added together to come up with the $2,520, and those amounts would automatically be transferred over to the budget spreadsheets. Now the flexible budget basis. Here's what a flexible budget would look like, or start out looking like. Here's what we had budgeted in the fixed budget for 2016, and we came up with 1,675 components. Inpatient is 1,150, outpatient 525. What we have done here, what I've done here, is I've converted each of these to a flexible budget dollar per unit. The inpatient gross revenues are based only on inpatient statistics. The outpatient gross revenues are only based on the outpatient statistic. And you can see what the cost per line item is for the expense side using both inpatient and outpatient statistics. So the elements of the budget for a healthcare business. You have the financial planning resources. So you're going to have the operating and statistical budget. You're going to have the revenue budget, an expense budget, a capital budget, and one not shown here is the cash flow budget. The operational budget provides a benchmark for the normal day-to-day operations of the business. Essentially, the operating budget is a future projection of the income statement and includes estimates of services, revenue, service volumes, revenue, and expenses. No matter what the organizational type, an understanding of the expected volume of services provided expressed in a statistical budget, such as you would have Medtronic, we're going to produce X number of implantable cardiac defibrillators, or we're going to produce Y number of defibrillators, or Z numbers of pacemakers. Anyway, the statistical budget provides a necessary foundation for other elements in the operating budget by defining the volume and nature of the units of service expected to be provided. Once an understanding of service volumes is established, managers can apply expected collection rates or premium rates to estimated volumes to arrive at revenue budget. And oftentimes, for the revenue budget, it may be gross revenues, in that in hospitals, the collection rates, the reimbursement rates, those type of things may not be able to get down to the departmental level. DRGs, an example is DRGs from Medicare. You may have per diems from Access, or DRGs from a Medicaid program. So keep those things in mind too. Once an understanding of service volume, while compiling the revenue budget, managers can make assumptions on the rate of collections for items. Again, that is difficult within a hospital setting. The expense budget is built using results from the statistical budget. Again, keep in mind the number of, or the salaries and wages should come from your position control, which tells you how many FTEs you have in each position. And if there's 3.1 or 3.4 FTEs, then you would convert that multiplying by 2,080 hours to determine what the expense would be when you apply salary dollars to that. Sometimes the position control may be broken down by individual employee, given the examples of their FTE as well, and being able to use their individual rates to determine what the salaries and wages expenses are going to be within that budget. Determining capital investment is an important next step in the budgeting planning process, since capital investments can be a significant use of scarce resources for a healthcare business. These decisions are detailed in the capital budget. The amount of capital that's available at any point in time. When you look at different projects or pieces of equipment, you will want to investigate whether it is necessary, i.e. to improve patient care, and or will it provide additional cash resources to the institution. If it's just a want and won't provide either of these two, you should probably eliminate the item from consideration in the capital budget. There are several different ways to determine if the piece of equipment or project is financially right for the facility by performing a break-even analysis or calculate the internal rate of return. If the equipment meets these two tests, it should be financially fit for the corporation. The other component, the cash flow budget, would be used to wrap all of the information in from the budget, whether it be the revenue budget, the expense budget, as well as the capital budget, and determine how much cash that you will actually have coming in and whether it's a positive cash flow. If it's not a positive cash flow, then adjustments need to be made. Budget variance analysis. Managers can use the budget in managing a healthcare business by comparing budgeted amounts with actual results achieved by the business. The calculated difference between the actual and budgeted amounts is known as the variance. When calculating the revenue variance, what we want to do is take the actual, subtract the budget, and that'll give us the revenue variance. Conversely, an expense variance is calculated by subtracting budget minus actual. to come up with the expense variance. Since most operating statistics relate to items that generate revenue, the same approach for calculating a revenue variance is used for the statistical budget variances. When performing a variance analysis, corporate-wide minimums should be set to avoid wasting time on minutia. One used during this video will be the variance of $2,500 or greater. Budget analysis variance. There's the simple budget variance analysis. The simple analysis uses the budget as prepared before the beginning of the fiscal period and computes the variance between the budget projection and the actual results. As the name implies, this method is very simple, taking only the difference between the actual and budgeted results, but may be limited if actual volumes differ from the budget projections. The other one is the flexible budget variance analysis. If you recall from the prior spreadsheet that I had, we showed that the dollars per statistic on that spreadsheet, and this is where we're going to use the flexible budget for the variance analysis. It's in response to fundamental weaknesses of simple budget variance. This method requires the manager to adjust the budget for changes in volume by applying revenue and expense per unit standards to the actual volume. The analysis then determines the variance between actual results and a budget projection that has been flexed or is flexible to the actual service volumes experienced. So now let's take a look at a simple variance analysis. Back to Tom Thumb Memorial Hospital. As you can see here, we have taken the information from the 2016 budget, placed it in the third column, and the 2016 actual is in the first column. And here's the results that we get for the surgery area. We'll take the 2016 budget and the 2016 actual, and we come up with $399,525 below budget. And for the outpatient, $8,525. Then some of the explanations that the OR manager gave us was there were fewer inpatient cases, and then not enough revenue. Usually with a simple analysis, they don't delve in as deeply as they need to, as you would in the flexible budget. And then on this one is on salaries and wages, callback because of after hours cases. And then several of the ones below, they said, oh, I don't know what happened. As you look at the expenses, again, we're going to subtract the budget from the actual on these, and these come up with a negative variances. And we get down to the bottom to the statistics, we'll do the same thing. So we over budgeted cases, and then in the outpatient, we had a little bit more than anticipated. Now, with a flexible budget variance, I've taken the flexible budget dollar per unit from the prior spreadsheet and placed it in column 1. 2016 is the actual revenues and expenses, and then the fourth column has the revised flexible budget, and that is based on the actual statistics that we received from the OR or from the system that tells us that we had 1,585 actual units within that department. And we take those, the inpatient is the 1,050 times the inpatient revenue per unit, and then the outpatient is the 535 times the outpatient revenue per unit, which is at $2,321, and that gives us what, on a flexible budget basis, the revenues would have been based on those statistics. Again, salaries and wages are going to come from the position control, but we're going to use the total number of units, statistical units, 1,585, and multiply that times the salaries and wages. we're going to do that for all the other components as well, such as the prosthetics and implants, minor equipment, so on and so forth, down to dues and subscriptions. And as you can see there, the variances become different based on the flexible budget variance based on the actual volumes. Now as we move along here, here's other guidance for strategic planning. Benchmarking. Why do we need to benchmark? Benchmarking is the comparison of key performance measures, your KPIs, relative to the competition, other organizations, or groups of organizations compiled by an industry group like the American Hospital Association, America's Health Insurance Plan, Healthcare Financial Management Association, or the Medical Group Management Association. Organizations such as these can provide valuable benchmarks on key ratios described elsewhere in this training module. A good example of this is the HFMA Key Hospital Financial Statistics and Ratio Mediums published annually by HFMA for its members. Also, there are companies that provide benchmarking services based on the organization. Comparing the information to its peers that have similar characteristics. One of these is Premier, but also Cleverly and Associates has provided insight into operational benchmarks. Strategic financial professionals. Strategic financial professionals, you're going to see the bigger picture organizational strategy, the business, and combined with clinical care delivery. Financial managers must see the bigger picture of the organization strategically from both a business as well as a clinical side. But they must also translate the strategic vision into measurable terms through the budgeting process. We also must translate the strategy into measurable terms through that budget process. And then assess problems with resource use to better management resources through the use of financial management tools such as the budget, and I prefer flexible budgets, and variance analysis. Again, using the flexible budget and the variance analysis gives us a more meaningful insight. Managers can assess problems with resource use in their business and better manage those resources in today's challenging healthcare industry. So, program summary. Now you are able to describe how strategic planning influences the budget, the difference between various budgeting approaches. We've looked at the two different types where we take the information and just bring it forward, which can be a problem, as we see, and then which is the incremental approach. And then we have the zero-based budget, which gives a little more teeth and meaning to some of the expenses that we saw, using the position control for salaries and wages, and then using actuals and other items such as minor equipment. We're now able to define the different types of budgets used in the healthcare business, and we're able to complete a simple budget variance analysis using the tools and information that we have provided in this program. You should be provided with our email addresses with this program when you run through the program. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you for viewing this YouTube video today, and good luck in the CHFP process.